Carol, sorry, thank you.
Well, I have kind of two things. One is, well, and I hope I don't make anybody upset here, but when I moved here, I mean, I grew up in North Portland, you know, just up the road, up by the interstate, and I always shopped here. When I moved down here, I was really amazed, and I keep saying I'm Vancouver challenged, and I still am, but all the people that go to Vancouver to shop. Maybe what this is going to force us to do is to support Oregon, to go to Oregon stores, to do, you know, I do water aerobics with one gal who was going to Marshall, and her sister shamed her into trying Columbia Park, you know, and support your city, support, you know, which again, I hope that doesn't offend people, but maybe that is something we need to think about, because it is going to be pretty darn expensive to do that. The other question I had, when you showed that picture of the Tomahawk Drive underneath there, now is that with is that what was been planned without the, you know, the new things that say that they're not gonna, that it's not gonna be as high here? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So
the new transition.
So I'll give you a little. So the history thing is that originally, so before the refinement thing ever came on the scene, Tomahawk Island Drive was going to be about 14 feet below grade. So we were anticipating it was going to have to dip down. With the refinement package, initially it was looking at 22 feet below grade at that location. What we've actually been able to do there, we did a little swap of some of the ramps and switched their location, which we just, you know, in looking a little closer, you realized we could swap them. The controlling item on those things, we have to have a certain amount of clearance, right, over the roadway. And really we had the lowest ramps at the outside edge of the highway on both of those things. We were able to swap some of them, so that we actually have been able to bring it up. Even with keeping the North Portland Harbor bridges, we're about at, I think maybe 14, maybe it's 15 feet below grade. So we've actually been able to recapture almost all of that, that grade difference. So those visuals, I don't know if those visuals were specific to 15 or 20 feet.
Those visuals were actually part of the, with the lower refinement.
Okay.
But we just thought they weren't worth it wasn't worth our money at this point until the design
is like 8 feet.
to change it 8 feet. But that is, and those visuals I want to let people know is, that's what the Portland Working Group has kind of been working on, and that's, we've been working with Greg Baldwin and CGF, who's just this phenomenal resource, who's helping us create a more welcoming streetscape for pedestrians, bicyclists, and vehicles. And so that was, they look kind of generic and blank, but that was just the first slide, and now we're, you know, now we're talking about what people like, what people don't like, and we'll be adding that in over the course of the next several months.
That was nice, I like that.
Yeah. Stop it right here.
So remember, you guys, the postcard that you got, I think you might even be getting them in the mail.
You are getting them in the mail?
It talks about February 10th over here at the Super Center in that big community room, which is right across from the food court. On February 10th, between 5:30 and 7:30, you'll actually be able to come and see more photographs and some actual models, which is kind of cool. You can actually take a little car and drive it underneath the tunnel and stuff like that. I mean, you'll actually be able to touch and see a lot more details on February 10th. So please come and join us if you can. If anyone needs a ride or anything, let me know. I can help you with
We
that.
really want your input. We want to know what you like, what you don't like, and how.
So I see 2 more questions, and then we'll let you guys eat, because I know I'm hungry, and I'm sure everybody else is hungry too. So.
Is there a system set up for repairs and maintenance? So many bridges in this town have no maintenance.
Right. Yeah, it's not specifically figured out right now whether or not the toll would, you know, there would be some ongoing operations and maintenance funds that would be out of the toll during its life. Whether or not it eventually goes away and what happens at that point is an open question. So I think there's some degree to which that the tolls that would be out there would be anticipated to pay for some maintenance.
Is there a hard written rule saying when, how, and what's approved on inspections? They need to inspect the bridges.
Right. Yeah, there are definitely, I'm really not familiar with bridge inspections, but there is a sort of standard set, you know, depending on the type of bridge, there's typically a set of standards for going out every few years and doing inspections and what they inspect. So there's a fair amount of detail for both Oregon and Washington on, you know, looking at bolts to looking underneath. They have these crazy little, like, it's like the antithesis of the cherry picker, but it goes underneath the bridge, and you can travel along with the truck here and have somebody hang under to go and look. They have, I mean, there's a whole set of inspection items, and then they have, typically both states will do like a bridge report to talk about the quality of bridges. One of the challenges is, even if you see that it is, you know, structurally obsolete, the challenge is when do you have the money to actually address it. So that's certainly something we'll be figuring out.
I'd like to ask a question. Who owns the bridge? Whose taxes are gonna take care of the bridge?
All the bridges along the Columbia River that are state bridges, they are shared jointly by Oregon and Washington. So there's really, at the state line is where that split occurs of the ownership of the bridge. The maintenance is actually flip-flopped between different bridges. So Oregon is responsible for the maintenance of this existing I-5 bridge. They're also responsible for the I-205 bridge. But then beyond that, WashDOT is responsible for the one further east and the one further west. And essentially that, on an annual basis, there's a chargeback, so that it's a 50% share of maintenance and operations. And they have a sort of an MOU, a memorandum of understanding about, you know, creating those chargebacks. So, I mean, I do want to get people to eat. I know there was this question here.
The reason why I came to this meeting and why I'm even sticking my nose is I'm trying to get up to speed and get information.
Yeah.
And my biggest concern is that there's going to be a lot of dust and debris and pollution created by this, and I'm like front row and center for that. Pardon?
We've already got it.
And I mean, already I have to rinse my car off every week because there's an inch of dust on it already. So this is what I'm concerned about, and I wonder what the environmental impact statement that you're going to be doing or have been doing a little bit and are going to do more this year is going to look at, and what base level of information are you starting with. And I feel like I need a ton more information about that because I want to know what my rights are, and you know, and I'm concerned about respiratory problems and all of those issues. And you know, I think that I went to that presentation that you did in December sometime at some school over there. I'm sorry, I'm just kind of.
That's all right. I forget all the presentations too. It's okay.
It was that you had a special person from the an environmental specialist person who talked about the history of those standards being set up, and I just feel and think that that's a huge issue for me personally, and that I don't hear very much about it, and I'd like to know how more information is going to come our way. And
so that highlights one thing. If you know other groups that we should present to or get information to, please let me know. We're always open to going to different groups. And if you want to set up a meeting, and just if you're really particularly interested and want to sit down like in our office and kind of go over what's in the draft EIS and what's expected in the future, we can absolutely do that. We oftentimes, when we're out, we can answer sort of, you know, lightweight questions. I don't have all the air quality information in my brain, certainly. And there are some ways in which we're going to be looking at different things with FEIS, but we can also do that. Derek, do you want to address it sort of briefly?
Sure. There are some specifics to this project that we've already started to look at, and the big one is the effects of driving piles or drilling in the river, hydroacoustically, in terms of general noise effects. So that's something that's somewhat specific to this project. We know we've got to do some pile driving. We know sound's going to travel across the water, so that's something that's the subject of specific analysis, partly for fish and partly for humans. Then there's just a general set of standards that the construction would have to adhere to. And you'll see more of that in the FEIS than you saw in the draft EIS, but it's not very customized. And it has a lot of air quality implications, so contractors are not allowed to leave open piles of aggregate and dirt. It has to be covered. You have to hose down dusty areas. You can't let the driveways get covered in aggregate and dirt. You have to block the storm grates so things don't run into them. And all those things that you may need to do if they build a Walmart or a bridge will be in place, but usually the state's to a slightly higher standard. But we'll break that down in much more detail in the FEIS. And then there'll be some information on some of the specific impacts that we think we have. But we're not even sure, for instance, where those piles of dirt would be just yet. That's not going to be figured out for 5 years yet, and the contractors could, you know, pick a better parcel. So we have to deal with it a little bit broadly at this point.